Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LJL officially unofficial broadcast, giving you the one and only English coverage of the LJL OU's 2021 Summer Finals. I will be your host for this afternoon, morning, or evening, depending where you are located throughout the world. Alex, otherwise known as Lexi, I go by Master on the internet. I am joined, firstly, by Midnight Cast. Welcome, Midnight, sir. Pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure to be here. The One of the Australian reps and the one to make it to the final desk, and I'm very interested to see how our two. I'm not gonna say survival teams, but the two teams do butt heads here because I'm wondering if it's gonna be a repeat of history.
We'll have to find out. We did have that your fellow Aussie brother down in the bot lane with us here, actually doing my hosting role yesterday. So I thoroughly appreciated having him assist and take over the reins. It was in capable hands. Melvin Callum, welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Feels good, man. I'm really excited to pick a team, support them, and then curse them, as has been my trademark throughout this split so far.
So don't go with his world prediction, ladies and gentlemen. It won't go well for you. I think FPX was in the future for him, I'm not sure if Doinby's going to take the crowd. And we've got the one, the only LJL historian Joshi. Welcome, sir, to the broadcast once again.
Oh, it's good to be back. As the only American here, it's a bright and early 1:30 in the morning, and I can't wait to go to sleep at 9 in the morning by the time this is over, because this is going to be a one banger of a series between these two teams.
We're almost guaranteed a banger. Last time we got the full 5, and that was in the Juggernaut match a few weeks ago. Coming into this one, ladies and gentlemen, Detonation Focus Me have ran it up. Yesterday we saw them have a victorious 3-0 versus Rascal Jester. And I've got to come over to you, Joshi, because the team we need to first start talking about is the one and only Detonation Focus Me. And they've been honestly on a tear throughout the whole split, the whole season, this whole year.
It's really been impressive to see how these guys have evolved, right? We always knew that when they were going to be bringing Arya in as well as Gang at the same time, that this was going to be the team to beat in the LJL, and they've really lived up to that. They had a little bit of struggles at the very beginning of summer when they were trying to figure out exactly how they wanted to play as a whole unit, and they still have a little bit of competition, how Rascal Jester in particular have been playing throughout the season, but watching how these guys play and understanding just how much raw talent exists on this roster gives us a lot of hope that if they are the Japanese representative to Worlds, are going to actually make some waves this time around.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most key important things. I mean, Midnight, you've been just kind of flabbergasted by the level of talent that you've been seeing from Arya.
Arya is sort of the driving force in the for the like the DFM, right? Like he's the namesake of the team in a way, but
Flag down.
But like, look at him statistically. He is one of the most super impressive laner there. He's third in damage output with 24.2. I don't know if we have a graphic.
Well, we'll bring it up in a bit. We'll bring it up in a bit.
Bring it up for a bit. And the stats wise, he's just all over his hell. He's leading KDA. Like, sure, you could say, oh, he's a KDA player, but he's actually just not a KDA player. He's actually playing with the team. So it's impressive that he's leading that charge in the stat-wise.
And I think what's an important thing is the distinction between 2020 and 2021 Arya. He's now no longer the 1v9 carry that we used to see. But we're talking so much about DFM. We're gushing. It's almost as if this is a one-team race. It isn't. Rascal Jester are the other team. And Melvin Izzle, I've got to come to you to kind of hype up the Jesters. They're in the finals and they got here over DFM.
It has to be said that from the previous best of 5, this is not a bad team by any metric. They are our current number 1 for a reason. They were tied with DFM at the end of the split in that first place, and it looked like because of how the tiebreaker went, there was a reason that we all thought DFM were just going to waltz on over them in the Juggernaut match. But Rascal Jester proved us wrong, taking it to a very elongated 5-game series where, as you can see in some of the B-roll here, they ended up coming out on top in such a beautiful performance in their victories. You saw the life that DFM had, but just watching some of the plays that they were able to get off, Kanatu performing well. Sol and Secret, always namesake players you need to watch for Rascal Jester, and these are the kind of people that when we see them on the stage today, it is going to be an explosive show.
There truly isn't anything else. I mean, gentlemen, the LJL as a whole over 2020 has been a wild ride, really, and there's no other way to get it started than kind of first looking back to how we truly got here. And I want to come over to you, Joshi, because spring was a very different landscape to what we've got currently in summer.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think we also have to look at how these teams like started working together. And I thought it was
Oh, yeah.
interesting when Midnight was saying that he was looking at Arya as kind of like the namesake player of the LJL. But I've got a fun stat for you guys to kind of go back even further. A couple of years ago, when I can't remember his name, but the Korean jungler for KT Rolster ended up retiring, we did a little bit of stats digging to see how long players had been playing for different organizations. And
Hmm.
right now, the still reigning king in the world is Faker. He's been playing with SKT since season 3, completely uncontested in that role. But the player who comes after him, the second longest tenured player with a single organization, actually is going to be Utapone. He's been
Hmm.
playing with DFM for only 3 months shorter than Faker has for SKT. And that's a dynasty that they're still been able to maintain this entire time. And we saw in spring, they were very, very dominant. They looked really good when they brought in Kazu as their coach. But now that we're back into summer, we have Gang back in. It has been just an entirely new style of roster. They've been so much more individually talented, and I can't wait to see how they're going to be stacking up against Rascal Jester, which feels a little bit more of a one-track team to me.
I completely agree with you. I mean, this was a circumstance that we kind of found ourselves in. This was a very deep run for a lot of these teams. But when we came over to summer, Melvin Izzle, it actually switched out and went very differently when we went over to summer playoffs because spring was the dominance of DFM, 6-2 throughout a whole playoff season. Let's just go for it. Let's look at summer playoffs because Melvin Izzle, I'm excited to kind of break that down with you.
What we were looking at and thinking, of course DFM are going to clean sweep because it has to be remembered they were on their massive win streak. I believe it finished something like 13 games before they ended up getting dropped by Rascal Jester in that Juggernaut match. But looking through, Axis was never a team at the start of the split. I think the highest prediction was 5th place for them coming in, and they have overperformed like lunatics. Yes, they ended up going down to DFM in a 3-0 yesterday, but it was a very well played 3-0 on both sides, and you could see that DFM was still getting pushed to the limits, but one of the reasons that this team is in the finals again is because of their resilience as a squad. Even when they are behind in gold, they will find those openings. This is one of the things that come with veterancy, and everybody on this team has got that spark to make the play to just end the game there and then.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a team that has changed everything. And I love that history that you brought in for us, Joshi, with Utapon being there. In actuality, Utapon hasn't really ever taken a long gated break from League of Legends and from competitive play. So there's probably a technicality there where maybe Utapon has actually technically a longer tenured player than Faker because no breaks. It's definitely one of those minor tidbits that we've definitely noticed multiple times. I'm just excited to kind of see where this team and kind of where the players go. Arya is the very new addition. He's going to be that core member that we're going to be seeing. So we're going to just have to wait and see. I'm just waiting for Rascal Jester and your predictions and so much more because Midnight, coming to you, these are two teams with vastly different playstyles, vastly different champion pools, execution, way they play the game. Like, this is two very different units.
Yeah, and the contrast between these two teams is going to be, I think, where we see the big break between the team. Obviously,
Mm.
for the likes of Rascal Jester, I think that their bottom lane is one of, if not the most important things for them to do well in this series here. Now, can they do it? Well, the predictions will say what we think of that one there. But Rascal Jester, again, I think they have to play through that bottom lane there because when you look at the opposite side of the members of DFM, the solo lanes are maybe a bit of a different beast to try and tackle.
I mean, Soul versus Utapon. It's one of our featured matches that we've got here. If we could bring that up, Reed, that'd be fantastic. Coming over to you, Melvin, what do you think of this matchup that we've got set up for us here?
There's a reason that it was going around just the public Twitter space at how much the LJL has support. I believe it's proximity to their ADCs. It's because we have really good ADCs. Between these two and Honey, our top 3 final ADCs left, I would happily build a squad around any of them and have them solo carry. These two have got champion Oceans. Utapon has played multiple roles. Soul can execute extremely well with Secret. These two, the Korean duo, they are stomping lanes consistently, and these are some of the champions we need to keep our eyes open for, but it's only 3. They play anything. If it is available and it is the right pick for the game, do not be surprised if they pull out something like the Vayne or something that seems completely out of the ordinary, because I have the full respect in these two to be able to cover any champion that is available.
I do want to take a little bit of time to look at like how these stats differ though and what we've kind of been seeing, because when we did see Gang coming back in as well as being joined with Arya and Gang, right? We saw a situation where I was kind of questioning, is this a situation where you have too many cooks in the kitchen? You have Evie, Arya, Utapone, who are all known for being high resource players. And we've actually been noticing that Utapone has kind of been the one to take that step back a little bit. You still see a lot of attention given towards Evie in the top lane. You still see Arya playing really heavily with Steel. And that's part of why Utapone's laning phase hasn't been quite as dominant during the summer split as we've seen in a lot of splits previously, is because he's been the one to give up a lot of resources. We're seeing a little more defensive play coming out of him, and it's really allowing Arya and Ebby to really step up and be the primary damage carries.
What's important is that this is a player and in a region where we've become a hyper carry meta down in the bot lane, and then maybe the best AD carry in our region is like, guys, I'm not gonna play hyper carry, I'm gonna play support. Like, what is going
Legit
on?
yesterday.
It looked brilliant, did it not? And
Yeah.
and talking about the bans, we had 7 AD carry bans, so absolutely, there's we can definitely flex it with the best when it comes to the AD carry pool. So I'm not too worried. What, Melvin Izzle, is one of the other specific matchups you're excited for in this series? Because we've got a fair few bangers to go through, and I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
I'm trying to remember which ones we actually have graphics for, because every lane is a banger matchup right here. I think we have Ebi Kanatu as our second highlighted one, because that is the main one that we will take a look at for. And I've got a little bit of spice to go up here. It's because Ebi loves to fight and scrap, but Kanatu can actually take it to them. As far as it goes, this is the place where scrapping can happen, and it goes not necessarily in Ebi's favor every single time, which is more than we can say about most players.
Absolutely, but this is also a player, remember, that came through the scouting grounds system. He's 17 years old when he debuted in the LJL. He was an all team first scouting grounds prodigy, and then has come through, and he's found himself in the summer finals playing for the LJL World's title, an invitation against Arya, who literally in his interview was going, if everything, it doesn't matter if I don't make worlds. Like, this is the kind of determination of DFM, and this is what Kanatsu has got to go against. And hey, in the opening game of summer 2021 against DFM, he got the solo kill on Ebby. Like, can you ask for more for a rookie player, gentlemen? Can you?
Yeah, it's been really impressive to see what Kinatsu's been able to do, and it's going to be something that I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to. You see the champions that you have listed up here on the graphic, Renekton, Gnar, and Gwen, and we saw a little bit of Gangplank being added recently as well. But one of the criticisms I've always leveraged towards the top lane here in the LJL is it feels like the champion pools have been really small. You have very known quantities. You got Ebby is going to play Gnar and Tom Kench. You see Kinatsu is going to play Gnar and Renekton. There's not a whole lot of variation, but when you have so much practice in the exact same champions over and over again, you're going to get these matchups taken to an all new level. And when both of them are willing to kind of weak side themselves in order to, or rather, Kinatsu is willing to weak side himself and Evie is going to be getting a little bit more attention, you got to pay attention to how well Kinatsu is actually going to be doing in keeping himself alive. And as you guys have already pointed out, he's been doing fantastically.
Midnight, what have you got to think about Ebby versus Kanatsu?
I mean, as long as someone presses W while playing set, I think they'll be fine. That was too easy of a shot. But on the criticism of champion pools, which I do absolutely agree with, I've been complaining about Gnar since we started. It's all we ever see in the damn top lane. I say that there's a Gnar plushie just staring at me now, judging me for that comment. But like, despite not having wide champion pools, you don't necessarily need them in the likes of the LJL. Look at where most of our bans end up focusing. The mid laners get hit up a lot, the junglers catch the side of the fire, and the hyper carries are always catching flack, especially with Ziggs and Vayne now rocking up in the bottom lane. Like, you don't have enough bans to punish your top laners. So yes, their champion pools may not be brilliant, but if you give them, one of the 3 champions that they need to play professionally, again, your Set, your Tom Kench, your Gnar, they should be fine to go.
I'm just excited because Academy players are at least showing us Camille's. So we might one day get more like laning Fiora's one like fighting in the top lane. But for the now time being, it'll be Wet Noodles and Ebby pretty much solo killing everybody and having the highest solo kill rate of any top laner in the LJL, because that's just what they do. But there's a player we spoke about at the very beginning, and then I very quickly pulled us away because we can't keep talking about them because the church might come in. But I do hear bells ringing. I believe Arya's name is being singing. Who wants to talk about the Lord and Savior of the LJL first?
Do we all just like start a hymn? I'm feeling like that's what we should
Oh.
probably get going at this point because
Oh.
everybody
The Halo
just
theme.
prays to this person for a reason. They have the champion ocean of all oceans. They pilot everything with extreme proficiency. And we even saw a reason yesterday. Arya's Irelia was getting banned non-stop. It finally got let open. And we saw why it was
This
getting
happened.
banned non-stop. It just completely decimated the game. Their LeBlanc is legendary. And I was looking at some of the numbers behind it actually. And when they end up playing global champions, so I'm classifying that as Twisted Fate, Rise, and LeBlanc because they get to roam a lot. They have lost one game all year, and it was one Twisted Fate game in the first week of this summer split after their MSI hangover. They are so good at every aspect of the game. This person contends with the best of them globally.
I really have to give a little bit more context to like what this guy did when he first came in. There have been a couple mid laners that have had a lot of impact on the LJL in kind of a global sense, just from coming as an import, right? Back in the day, we had Remind, who used to play for Unsold Stuff Gaming.
Yes.
Then we had Dasher coming in when he had a chance to step in the mid lane, and he took over the league with the Zoe. And then Arya, originally known as Luna, used to play with Crest Gaming Act alongside Nap, Pachamacha, Art, and Achamomo, and really started to make some big waves as he started to transition to other teams. As we brought in people like Gongo and Grendel to actually play for Crest Gaming Act, we saw them continue to elevate. And now this guy went from being one of the most dominant mid laners a couple of years ago to being the most dominant mid laner, bar none, on the most dominant team in the entire region. So this guy's growth, just as a player, he started high and somehow he's gotten even higher.
Yeah, and it's going to be a bit of a problem because Recap is just going to have to sort of deal with that. And I'm very curious, well, is Recap going to, I'm going to use the word retreat onto stuff that is very defensive in nature? Now, we haven't seen a whole lot of it in the actual season, but my first instinct was really, hey, just don't interact with Arya, play, I don't know, Wave Clear, play Galio, play Orianna, stuff
Play
that
the
just
A
doesn't...
style of mid lane. Yeah, absolutely. Nullify
Yeah.
the opponent and go to another place.
Exactly. But then the moment you try and do that, Arya's just going to play, okay, I'm playing Rise, I'm playing LeBlanc, I'm playing something like that because I've gotten access to that champion, and I'm just going to roam while you're wave clearing. And suddenly you've nullified his impact in lane, which, yes, means that there's the likelihood of no Shaco coming out, thank God. But
Well,
with that...
we're on 11-16. We could actually see Shaco.
Oh boy, you
Please no, don't curse
I
us
had to
like
open
this.
that door, didn't I? But
I would have a good reputation going into Worlds. Don't pull out the Shaco.
But like, even if you try and nullify him in lane by picking a matchup that will keep Recap safe, then Arya just roams and him and Steel become a two-man death squad. So you sort of, Recap has to decide before the game ever loads in, before Champion's like, what kind of battle is he wanting to try to do against what is considered the best mid laner? Are you going to challenge him to a head-on brawl and try and try out mechanic him? Or are you going to sort of back away from the fight and try and use your team to win that win in a numbers advantage?
And I mean, I think we saw one of the ways that you can decide to do that in the previous series that we just witnessed. Megumin, that rookie player, he tried his absolute best. He even got a counter pick matchup, his own words, ladies and gentlemen, when he had his Renekton versus Arya's Irelia. He was like, I'm going to try my best. He almost got a solo kill, remember, at 6 against Arya.
Oh, so close.
But this isn't Scouting Grounds where he gets two kills pre-6. This isn't where Megaman gets to overrun people. This is Arya, and obviously he flashes away and then comes back and gets a kill on Megaman because it's Arya's world, people, and it's kind of his league. And as he put in his post-game interview yesterday, if he doesn't make Worlds, it doesn't matter to him. That's how much it means to him. Gentlemen, we've got a few ways we can go from here. We can start talking about our predictions, and I think it's probably fair enough to start setting up those expectations as we bring up our predictions. I, ladies and gentlemen, have predicted a 3-1. And then we've got mostly a sea of blue. Detonation focused me, and then I think one of our
Is there a clown in the water?
ooh.
Are you talking
So,
about the prediction or the player?
Oh,
so I feel like I need to explain myself here. I'm gonna be honest. I'm feeling a little bit like the odd one out. Everyone's wearing,
no, we
everyone's
like
wearing
the odd one out. He's a
disco.
good YouTuber.
Everyone's wearing disco, and I misinterpreted the era of the party. So
Okay.
the reason why again, it's Rascal Jester, I think, has a pretty decent shot, and my logic isn't some ground. Oh, I just have a gut instinct, or I've got mass amount of stats to back it up. Because as we saw on the stat sheets earlier, DFM just looks better in most aspects when you compare it to the likes of Rascal Jester. But Rascal Jester has shown that they can find DFM's throat. We saw that in the best of 5. Yes, it went to 5 games, but DFM looked more than mortal. They can definitely bleed. And Rascal Jester has had a decent break where they have been able to study the best of 3, the 3 games up against the likes of Actors. They've had time to go over their best of 5 series themselves. And they, I hope, have strategies, maybe have a couple champion picks, a couple counter matchups that DFM aren't going to see coming. And I'm going to hope that the break they had for taking the victory over DFM has given them enough of an advantage tactically in Champion Select to be able to stop DFM from really getting back into the car.
All right, but I do have to ask a little bit of a question here for you, Midnight, right? Because I've got DFM 3-2. We saw how close this was last time, and DFM always seemed to find a bit of a buff in the actual finals going into Worlds, with I feel like the one exception being V3 last year. The big thing is you said that we got to see Rascal Jester take a break, but they were last playing on patch 11.15, whereas DFM had a full series on 11.16 in the middle of playoffs. They've gotten more chances to play with this on stage. They can feel it, and they just beat Axis super convincingly on it. I feel like the break that we saw coming out from Rascal Jester is actually more likely to hurt them this time around, since they haven't had the opportunity to play with the same thing in the same kind of high pressure environment.
I'm getting Sengoku vibes, Joshi. No, don't do this.
We're not going to talk about that a whole
We're
lot.
not
So
going to talk about
Goku
that. No, no,
always-
no, no.
They're not here. They're not here. They've not had a good year.
No, they're not here, are they, Melvin Izzle?
I won broadcast without talking about Sengoku. Is all I wanted, alright? I thought, nice day, put on a good shirt, be ready to not have to hear Sengoku cursing me again, but doesn't look good for DFM if I'm supporting them, is all I'm saying. It's not exactly a person you want on your fans.
But you've gone for the 3-1 as well. You've agreed with me. What's your reasoning for that, very briefly?
I think that the expectation that DFM clean sweep is one that is fair to have, but I imagine that Rascal Jester still have to have something in the tank. They got to sit there and wait, and while it's kind of hard to use the reasoning of, well, you got to see all the stuff DFM played, they just played Nidalee 3 times and curb stomped early game for a lot of it, so you didn't learn a massive amount. You learned one extra ban, but I imagine that Rascal Jester are still that caliber of team that even with an on-form DFM, they can at least take them down once and make every game close is the most important part.
Well, I believe you've actually got a clip for us, which actually perfectly demonstrates why Midnight is going for Rascal Jester, why Joshi believes it's going to be a competitive full 5 game of Silver Scrapes, and why you and me believe that, well, maybe not that much as the other two, but we believe there will at least be one victory for Rascal Jester.
All right, so I'm ready to kick it off. I've got the Rascal Jester clip ready to go first. And looking at this one, this is middle of the split. We have it in Super Week, I believe it was, against V3. It's pretty close at this point in the game. Equal gold, equal kills. We're 9 minutes in. And this is one of the most narrow windows you could make a play and Rascal Jester find it. Destiny, not available for Ace. Teleport, not available for Cog. Hollow, not got flash for the best part of 40 seconds or so. And Reiner has actually just showed mid lane to help push out and allow Ace to rotate to this Herald. So as soon as all of these things are on the table, quickly calculating we have Rascal Jester jump to action and say, bot lane, you are not safe here. Secret overdiving, chasing as far as they can, and you have to watch this right here on the kill recap because I didn't believe it the first time I saw it, but Secret dies as an execute to tower, so no gold goes over. Ace teleports down to this bottom lane to collect farm, but now you have to look at the minimap again, because we have Hatchemecha has pathed up to topside, seen the Rift Herald went down for Mugen, and said, okay, they have to make a counterplay up here. They need to look for something, because this is a good team, we respect them, we know they're going to try, but again, the Enchanted Crystal was just used defensively. We know now that there's 2 members on the bottom side for V3, so as long as you camp up here, you can give yourself the numbers advantage. So watching as Rascal Jester wait in the wings, you have Hatchemecha just sitting there lurking on this Sejuani. These utility picks, they are so good at them because they know exactly where their windows are. And you watch this play, and it looks like Kanatu has gone far too overextended, but Hatchemecha is just lurking outside of vision, waiting. And as soon as Mugen pops out of Fog of War, they come in for the counter-attack. And now, need to look again, because you can see Secret straight off a base run into this top side to swing the play. Because Ace went down to the bottom lane, we now have Recap running up on the Yone, and the execution may not be the cleanest, but they still end up completely sweeping this play, only dropping 1 kill. And most importantly, accelerating this game to a gold lead from what was an even state in one of the most narrow windows you could find. They end up picking up everybody here. They're against no slouches, though. They're against Detonation Focus Me, and we need to look at this one because this is a set play they do, set with 2 Ts, that I love to watch. And it is all off of Ebby, level 1 skirmishing. They will lurk in bushes. They did it every single game in this Axis series yesterday. And I only stumbled onto this because I saw the heat map for Steel, and 3 to 4 minutes, it looked like this on the minimap. They were only up here. They start bot side, they get a leash most of the time, they run on up, and within 3 to 4 minutes, you're going to get to watch the magic happen because it is beautiful the way that they play this out. Consistently picking up a lead, consistently looking for a dive, and Ebby takes the second wind and commits to these super hard trades for no benefit other than just making sure that the minions cannot be interacted with by the enemy top laner. Look at this. I want to call this a protest push by Ebby, because he's not hitting the wave, but it's slow pushing by sheer factor of some of the minions have to acknowledge he exists. Now, we skip to about 30 seconds, a couple minutes in the future. This is the 3rd minion wave, and guess what? It's 3 minutes. Where do we have Steel? He's on the top side. He's lurking. So many options available. If the minion wave went well, they can look to dive. If it didn't, they can at very least get priority for the Scuttle Crab, which you can see here. Arya, have to mention Arya, it's every single play DFM makes, gets a beautiful teleport in to completely zone off Hoglet. And as a jungler, I feel pain watching this clip, because there is nothing, absolutely nothing Hoglet can do. They are left in a hellish state here where they don't want to go topside, because there's no camps. But that means their top laner, they're left for dead. They have to path down here to match Scuttle Crabs, otherwise Steel gets priority. And because Steel pathed the top side in the first place, they still have a backup camp on the side. And as you let this one play out, you can see that it's just DFM deciding, actually we can get a playoff here. I know it's another one of those situations where we can't necessarily get the kill, but they force out the teleport from Megumin, and it puts both solo laners for Axis in such a dire state that Arya ends up building a 2-level lead later on because of how much XP is missed and how well they played this one out.
You know, gentlemen, when Melvin Izzle brings up something that you mention on cast in a replay highlight moment, I feel like I'm doing okay at the moment. I feel like my cast yesterday went all right, but I'm not too sure. Gentlemen, we are almost at the end of our half-hour pre-show for the LJL OU. Thank you so much, gentlemen, by the way, for joining me for this. This was my idea, and you 3 willingly came along. So why was that? Are you just all excited for DFM Rascal Jester and you just kind of humored me? Is that the case?
I had a few too many drinks before I got on here, Alexia. At this
It
point,
is 1 in the morning.
We're just
Yeah,
vibing.
I can understand. I can understand. What about you other two? You one's an Aussie, and then one of you woke up at the crack of dawn with me.
I mean, like I said, it's in my time zone, right? It's just obviously I'm here because it's just convenient for me to be here naturally. They play when I'm awake, they end when I go to sleep. It works perfectly. Obviously, that's the only reason.
I
So what-
couldn't sleep knowing that we had this banger final this morning and
Oh.
thought, might as well do
There it
this if I'm
is.
going to be here.
So
Wow,
we-
you suck up.
so we-
It's my life.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, it is moments until, in theory, game number 1 to start, but it wouldn't be, well, I would be remiss if I didn't at least hand it over to my co-founders of the LJL OU of Initialize and Nymera to run over their thoughts, to give you their impressions, and to kind of get you amped up more than ever for Rascal Jester facing off against Detonation Focus Me. Gentlemen, take it away.